The shuttle doors opened with a soft hiss, and Yuna stepped onto the massive ship that would become her home. The Eternal Dominion stretched before her like a floating city made of metal and light. Thousands of alien beings moved through its corridors. Some walked on 2 legs. Others crawled on 6. A few floated through the air like living clouds. Yuna was small. She had always been small. Back on Earth, doctors said her body was weak. Her bones were thin. Her muscles tired easily. She could not run fast or lift heavy things. But her mind was sharp like a blade, and her heart was stronger than steel. She carried only 1 bag. Inside were her clothes, her medicines, and a small journal with a red cover. Earth's government had chosen her to represent humanity among the stars. Many people thought it was a mistake. They wanted to send soldiers or scientists or politicians. But the selection committee saw something in Yuna that others could not see. A tall officer walked beside her. His name was Tai-Ho, and he was her assigned protector. He had broad shoulders and hard eyes. He did not smile when they met. "Stay close to me," Tai-Ho said. "These aliens do not respect humans. They think we are young and stupid." "Understand," Yuna replied softly. They walked through the main corridor toward the welcome assembly. Yuna noticed how other beings looked at her. Some stared with curiosity. Others looked away as if she was not worth seeing. A group of insect-like creatures clicked their mouths together. She knew they were laughing. The assembly hall was enormous. Thousands of seats rose up toward a ceiling so high that Yuna could barely see it. Representatives from 200 species had gathered here. They came in all shapes and sizes. Some were beautiful. Some were terrifying. All of them were stronger than YUN. At the center of the hall stood a platform. 5 ancient beings sat there on floating chairs. These were the Syndicate Council, the rulers of the Galactic Coalition. They had governed the galaxy for 10,000 years. To them, humanity was nothing more than a child species that had just learned to walk among the stars. "Humanity's representative may approach," one of the council members announced. Its voice echoed through the hall like thunder. Yuna walked forward. Each step felt like a mile. She could feel thousands of eyes watching her tiny form move across the floor. Whispers spread through the crowd like wind through grass. "Is that their champion?" She looked sick. Humans truly are pathetic. Yuna kept walking. She did not let her face show any emotion. When she reached the platform, she bowed her head respectfully. "I am Yuna of Earth," she said. "I come in peace and friendship." Silence fell over the hall. Then a deep laugh broke through the quiet. It came from the left side of the chamber, where the warrior species sat together. A massive figure rose from his seat. He was 9 feet tall, with gray skin and 4 arms. His body was covered with battle scars. This was Commander Rook of the Velthari, the most feared warrior in the Coalition fleet. "This is humanity's representative." Rook said loudly, "This tiny, fragile thing?" He walked down toward Yuna. Each of his footsteps shook the floor. When he reached her, he towered over her like a mountain over a flower. "I have crushed rocks stronger than you," Rook said. "I have killed beasts 10 times your size with my bare hands." He reached down and grabbed Yuna by the front of her uniform. With one arm, he lifted her off the ground like she weighed nothing. Her feet dangled in the air. "Earth sends us a dying hatchling." Rook shouted to the crowd. "They insult us with their weakness." The hall erupted in laughter. Species that were enemies laughed together. For this one moment, they all agreed on something. Humans were a joke. Yuna did not struggle. She did not cry or beg. She simply looked into Rook's yellow eyes and waited. Rook frowned. He expected fear. He expected tears. This human gave him neither. "Do you have nothing to say?" He growled. "I do," Yuna said quietly. Her voice was calm and steady. "Strength fades. Will does not." Rook's eyes narrowed. For a long moment, he stared at the small human in his grip. Then he snorted and dropped her. Yuna landed hard on the floor, but did not fall. She stood straight and kept her eyes on him. "Take her away," Rook said with disgust. "Give her quarters fit for her status. The lowest ones." The council did nothing to stop this. They watched with cold amusement as guards led Yuna out of the assembly hall. Taiho walked behind her, his face red with anger and shame. They took her to a small room near the waste processors. The air smelled bad. The lights flickered. There was only a thin bed and a broken chair. "This is wrong," Taiho said. "I will file a complaint with the human embassy." "No," Yuna said. "This is fine. How can you say that? They treated you like garbage." Yuna sat on the thin bed. Her body hurt from being grabbed and dropped. But her eyes were bright and alert. "They showed me exactly who they are," she said. "That is valuable information." Taiho shook his head. "You should go home. Request a transfer. There is no shame in it. You do not belong here." "Where do I belong?" Yuna asked. "Somewhere safe. Somewhere you will not be hurt." Yuna smiled sadly. "I have been hurt my whole life, Taiho. By my own body. By people who thought I was worthless. I am still here. I am still standing." Taiho did not know what to say. He looked at this small woman with new eyes. There was something inside her that he could not name. Something that made him feel strange. "Get some rest," he finally said. "I will bring you food later." After he left, Yuna sat alone in the dark room. She could hear the hum of machines through the walls. She could smell the garbage from the processing center below. But she did not complain. She took out her journal with the red cover. She opened it to a blank page and began to write. "A1. They see a weak body. They laugh at my size. They think I am nothing. Good. Let them think that. Let them ignore me. Let them forget I exist. I will watch. I will learn. I will find every secret they try to hide. And when the time comes, they will understand their mistake." She closed the journal and held it against her chest. Outside her tiny room, the great ship hummed with life. Thousands of powerful beings went about their business, already forgetting the small human they had mocked. But Yuna did not forget. She remembered every laugh, every insult, every cruel smile. She stored them all in her heart like fuel for a fire that had not yet been lit. She looked up at the flickering light above her bed. Her body was tired. Her muscles ached. But her mind was already working, planning, preparing. "They will learn," she whispered to herself. "They will all learn." Then she lay down on the thin bed, closed her eyes, and slept. Tomorrow, her real work would begin. 3 months passed on the Eternal Dominion. To most of the beings aboard, Yuna had become invisible. She was the small human who lived in the storage room. She was the quiet one who sat in the back during meetings. She was nobody important. This was exactly what Yuna wanted. Every day, she walked through the ship with her head down and her ears open. She learned to move like a ghost. She learned which corridors were busy and which were empty. She learned when the guards changed shifts and when the officers took their meals. Most importantly, she learned to listen. The alien species aboard the ship did not guard their words around her. Why would they? She was just a weak human. What could she possibly understand? What could she possibly do with any information? So they talked freely. They argued about politics in front of her. They discussed secret deals while she cleaned nearby tables. They whispered about forbidden things. Never noticing the small woman with the sharp eyes, Yuna learned 17 alien languages in 3 months. She did not tell anyone about this. She pretended to need translation devices like other humans did. But she understood every word spoken around her. One day, she met Jiho in the engineering section. He was a young human man who worked on the ship's life support systems. He had messy hair and grease on his hands and a friendly smile. "You are the representative, yes?" Jiho asked. "I heard what happened at the welcome assembly. That was not fair." "Life is not always fair," Yuna said. "True, but you did not deserve that treatment." Jiho looked around carefully. "Listen, if you ever need anything, come find me. I know this ship better than most. There are tunnels and pathways that the aliens do not watch closely." Yuna studied his face. She saw honesty there. She saw kindness. She decided to trust him. "Thank you, Jiho. I may take you up on that offer." Over the following weeks, Jiho showed her the hidden parts of the ship. Maintenance tunnels ran through the walls like blood vessels. Service corridors connected every section. With Jiho's help, Yuna could go almost anywhere without being seen. She used this freedom to explore. She found the Council's private meeting rooms. She discovered the Military Communications Center. She located the medical research laboratories hidden deep in the ship's core. What she found there changed everything. Late one night, Yuna crawled through a narrow tunnel above the medical labs. Through a small gap in the ceiling, she could see scientists working on something. They were mixing chemicals. They were testing them on cells under glass. She watched and listened for hours. What she heard made her blood turn cold. The Syndicate Council had a secret program. For hundreds of years, they had been sterilizing species they considered inferior. They would send medical ships to young planets. They would offer free vaccines and health checks. But hidden in those vaccines were chemicals that slowly destroyed the ability to have children. Entire species had died out, without ever knowing why. The Council called it population management. They called it maintaining balance. But it was murder. Slow, quiet murder of billions of innocent beings, and humanity was next on their list. Yuna barely breathed as she crawled back through the tunnels. Her hands were shaking. Her heart pounded in her chest. She needed to warn Earth. She needed proof. She contacted her sister Hannah through a secret communication channel. Hannah was a scientist working for Earth's government. She had access to classified information. Yuna whispered into her device. "I need you to check something. Look for any strange medical shipments coming to Earth. Vaccines that were not made by our own laboratories." 3 days later, Hannah sent her reply. Her voice was tight with fear. "You were right, Yuna. We found them. Shipments disguised as standard vaccines. They contain something we have never seen before. Our scientists are still analyzing it, but the early results are terrifying." Yuna closed her eyes. The worst was true. She began gathering evidence. She copied files. She recorded conversations. She photographed documents. Every night, she risked her life to collect more proof. But Commander Rook had not forgotten about her. He still hated the small human who had shown no fear. He found ways to make her life miserable. He ordered the heating in her quarters turned off during the cold nights. He assigned her impossible tasks and then punished her when she could not complete them. He spread rumors that humans carried dangerous diseases. Other species began avoiding Yuna. They would not sit near her in the dining hall. They would not speak to her in meetings. She became even more isolated than before. One night, after Rook ordered her heating shut off for the third time, Yuna sat shivering in her freezing room. Her body was not made for this cold. Her thin frame had no protection against it. She thought about giving up. She thought about going home. Her body hurt so much. Every breath felt like ice in her lungs. But then she thought about the children of Earth, the babies who would never be born. If the Council succeeded, the future that would be stolen from her people. She wrapped herself in every piece of clothing she owned. She pulled her thin blanket tight around her shoulders. And she kept working. Tai-Ho found her the next morning. She was unconscious on the floor, her lips blue from the cold. He carried her to the medical bay, shouting for help. The doctors said she was lucky to be alive. A few more hours, and she would have died. Yuna woke up slowly. The lights were too bright. Her body felt heavy and strange. She saw Tai-Ho sitting beside her bed. His face was filled with worry. "You almost died," he said. "But I did not," she whispered. "This has to stop. Rook will kill you eventually. Come home, Yuna, please." Yuna reached out and touched his hand. Her fingers were still cold. "I cannot leave," she said. "Not yet. Not now." "Why? What is so important that you would die for it?" Yuna looked at him for a long moment. She decided to tell him the truth. She told him everything. The secret program? The sterilization. The threat to humanity. Tai-Ho listened in silence. His face grew darker with every word. When she finished, his hands were shaking with anger. "How do we stop them?" he asked. I have been collecting evidence, but I need more time. I need to find enough proof that no one can deny. Taiho nodded slowly. Then I will protect you. Whatever it takes. They will not kill you while I am alive. For the first time in months, Yuna felt something warm in her chest. She was not alone anymore. Thank you, she said softly. Taiho stood up and walked to the door. Rest now. Build your strength. When you are ready, we will finish this together. After he left, Yuna lay in the medical bed and stared at the ceiling. Her body was broken, but healing. Her spirit was tired, but undefeated. She thought about all the evidence she had gathered. She thought about the summit that was coming in 2 months. Every species in the coalition would gather there. It would be the perfect time to reveal the truth. She smiled weakly. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who knew exactly what they had to do, no matter how dangerous it might be. I have what I need now, she whispered to herself. Soon they will all know. Soon everything will change. She closed her eyes and let sleep take her. She dreamed of fire spreading through the stars. She dreamed of old empires falling. She dreamed of a small woman standing in the ashes, finally seen. The day of the summit arrived like a storm on the horizon. Ships from every corner of the galaxy gathered around the Eternal Dominion. The great vessel had never held so many beings at once. The corridors were crowded. The assembly hall was packed to overflowing. The air itself seemed to vibrate with power and importance. Yuna stood in her small room and looked at herself in the broken mirror. She was still thin. She was still frail. The cold had left dark circles under her eyes that would not go away. But there was fire in those eyes now. A fire that had been burning for months. Taiho knocked on her door. It is time, he said. I know. Are you ready? Yuna picked up a small data device from her bed. It contained everything. All the evidence. All the proof. Months of work compressed into something she could hide in her palm. I am ready, she said. They walked together through the crowded corridors. Beings from 100 different worlds pushed past them. Nobody looked at the small human woman. Nobody noticed the storm she carried inside her. The grand assembly hall was magnificent. Banners from every species hung from the high ceiling. The Syndicate Council sat on their floating chairs at the center, dressed in ceremonial robes. They looked like gods waiting to receive worship. Yuna took her seat in the back, where junior species were placed. Taiho stood behind her like a shadow. Jiho was somewhere in the crowd, ready to help if needed. For hours, the summit proceeded normally. Trade agreements were signed. Borders were discussed. The council made speeches about peace and cooperation. Everyone clapped at the right moments. Everyone played their part. Then Yuna raised her hand. A council member noticed her. The human representative wishes to speak? Murmurs spread through the hall. This was unusual. Junior species rarely spoke at summits. They were supposed to watch and learn, not participate. I request permission to address the assembly, Yuna said. Her voice was quiet but clear. The council members looked at each other. Amusement crossed their ancient faces. What could this tiny creature possibly have to say? Very well, the head council member said. You may approach. Yuna stood. Her legs felt weak, but she forced them to carry her forward. The walk to the center platform seemed endless. She could feel thousands of eyes on her back. She could hear whispers following her like ghosts. Look at her. What is she doing? This should be entertaining. She reached the platform and turned to face the assembly. For a moment, she just stood there, looking out at the sea of alien faces. Warriors and diplomats. Scientists and merchants. Rulers of empires that had existed for millions of years. And one small human woman with a secret that would burn it all down. Thank you for allowing me to speak, Yuna began. I know that humanity is young. I know that we are seen as weak and unimportant. I know that many of you laughed when I first arrived on this ship. She paused. The hall was silent now. Even the whispering had stopped. But I have spent the last 5 months watching, listening, learning, and I have discovered something. that every being in this hall deserves to know. She pressed a button on her data device. The giant screens around the hall flickered to life. Documents appeared, charts, chemical formulas, medical records. For centuries, Una continued, the Syndicate Council has been running a secret program. They have been visiting young species. They have been offering vaccines and medical aid. But those vaccines contain something else. A slow-acting poison that destroys the ability to reproduce. Gasps echoed through the hall. Beings rose from their seats in shock. Species have disappeared because of this program. The Velthari themselves lost 3 colony worlds to unexplained infertility 40 years ago. The Council blamed disease. The truth is on your screens now. Commander Rook stood up. His face was twisted with rage. This is lies. Human lies, is it? Una pressed another button. An audio recording played through the hall's speakers. It was the voice of a council member, discussing population targets, discussing which species needed to be reduced, discussing humanity. The recording was clear. It was undeniable. The words hung in the air like poison. They were going to do this to humanity next, Una said. They have already sent shipments to Earth. My sister discovered them. Our scientists are analyzing them now. The hall erupted into chaos. Species that had been allies of the Council began shouting accusations. Old enemies found common cause in their outrage. The careful order that had governed the galaxy for 10,000 years cracked like thin ice. The Council members rose from their chairs, trying to restore calm. But no one was listening to them anymore. Rook charged through the crowd toward Una. His eyes were wild with fury. He did not care about the evidence or the truth. He only knew that this small human had destroyed everything. I will kill you, he roared. He was fast for his size. He covered the distance in seconds, his forearms reaching for Una's throat. But Tai-Ho was faster. The human soldier stepped between them, meeting Rook's charge with his own body. The impact was tremendous. Tai-Ho was thrown backward, but kept his feet. He raised his fists and faced the massive Velthari warrior. You will not touch her, Tai-Ho said. Rook laughed cruelly. You think you can stop me, human? You are nothing. The fight was brutal and short. Rook was stronger. Rook was trained in combat for 100 years. He broke Tai-Ho's arm with one blow. He cracked his ribs with another. Blood poured from cuts on the human's face. But Tai-Ho did not fall. Every time Rook knocked him down, he got back up. Every time Rook hit him, he stepped forward again. His body was breaking, but his will would not yield. The crowd watched in stunned silence. They had never seen anything like this. A weak human, clearly outmatched, refusing to surrender. Refusing to die? Why, Una used the time well? While everyone watched the fight, she transmitted all her evidence to every ship in the fleet. Every government, every news system. The truth spread like fire through dry grass. By the time security forces finally pulled Rook away from Tai-Ho, it was too late. The secret was out. Nothing could put it back. Guards grabbed Una roughly. You are under arrest for disturbing the summit. Arrest me if you want, Una said calmly. It does not matter anymore. Everyone knows now. As they dragged her away, she looked back at the chaos in the hall. Species were fighting with each other. Council members were fleeing. The foundation of the Galactic Order was crumbling before her eyes. She found Rook in the crowd. He was staring at her with pure hatred. But there was something else in his eyes, too. Something that looked almost like fear. Una smiled. Her lip was split from where a guard had hit her. Blood ran down her chin, but she smiled anyway. Strength fades. She called out to him. Will does not.
How?
Then the guards pulled her through the doors, and she was gone. In a medical bay on the other side of the ship, Jiho found Tai-Ho barely alive. The human soldier had multiple broken bones. He had internal bleeding. He should have been dead. Why did you do it? Jiho asked as he called for doctors. You knew you could not win. Tai-Ho coughed blood and managed a weak smile. I did not need to win. I just needed to give her time. Was it worth it? Look at yourself. Taiho closed his eyes. Ask me again when this is over. Ask me when they are free. Outside, the galaxy burned with the truth. And somewhere in a holding cell, a small woman with a weak body and an iron soul waited for whatever came next. She had lit the fire. Now she would see how far it would spread. 6 months had passed since the summit. The galaxy was on fire. The Syndicate Council still held power, but their grip was slipping. Dozens of species had risen against them. Fleets that once protected the Council now hunted its ships. Worlds that once paid tribute now closed their borders and prepared for war. And at the heart of the rebellion was a name that everyone knew. The Frail One, the small human woman who had broken an empire with nothing but truth. Una sat in a command room on a hidden rebel station. The room was cold and bare. Maps covered the walls. Screens showed troop movements and ship positions. Officers from a dozen different species moved around her, waiting for her orders. She still looked weak. Her body had not changed. She still needed medicine. She still tired easily. But when she spoke, everyone listened. The Council's third fleet is moving toward the mining colonies, she said, pointing at a map. They want to cut off our fuel supply. We should meet them with our own fleet, a Velthri officer suggested. He was one of many warriors who had joined the rebellion after learning the truth about their lost colony worlds. No, Una said, that is what they expect. We will not fight them directly. She pulled up another screen. Jiho, show them. Jiho stepped forward. He was no longer just an engineer. He had become one of Una's most trusted advisors. The Council's fleet needs to pass through this sector, Jiho explained. There is an old asteroid field here, unstable, dangerous, but I have calculated a path through it. We hide ships in the asteroids, Una continued. Small ships. Fast ships. When the Council's fleet enters, we attack from all sides and then disappear into the rocks. We do not try to destroy them. We slow them down. We damage them. We make them afraid. The officers studied the plan. Some nodded. Others looked uncertain. This is not how wars are fought, an elder alien said. Where's the honor in hiding? Honor is a luxury, Una replied. Survival comes first. We cannot match them in strength. So we must beat them in other ways. She had learned this from human history. Small forces defeating large ones. Weak armies breaking strong empires. Humanity had done it many times on Earth. Now they would do it among the stars. The plan worked. The Council's fleet was ambushed in the asteroids. 12 ships were damaged. 3 were destroyed. The rest turned back in confusion. The mining colonies stayed free. News of the victory spread quickly. More species joined the rebellion. More warriors came to fight under the banner of the Frail One. On Earth, Hannah led a team of scientists working day and night. They studied the Council's sterilization chemicals. They developed medicines to reverse the damage. They shared their discoveries with every species that needed them. We are saving lives, Hannah told Una during one of their secret calls. Families that thought they could never have children are having them now. You started this, Una. You gave us the chance to help. We did this together, Una said. All of us. But the war was far from over. The Council still had massive fleets. They still controlled the richest worlds, and they had begun fighting back with desperate cruelty. They destroyed a rebel hospital ship. They bombed civilian colonies. They executed prisoners without trial. Each act of violence was meant to frighten the rebellion into surrender. It had the opposite effect. Taiho led the human combat units. He had recovered from his injuries, though he carried scars that would never fade. He trained humans and aliens together, teaching them to fight in ways the Council had never seen. Humans were not the strongest. They were not the fastest. But they were stubborn beyond reason. They could keep fighting when others would quit. They could endure pain that would break other species. And they were creative in ways that surprised everyone. One human squad captured. A Council warship using nothing but maintenance drones and sleeping gas. Another freed a prison camp by pretending to be food delivery workers. A third destroyed a weapons factory by hacking its computer systems from 1,000. miles away. The council did not know how to fight enemies like this. Their generals were trained in traditional warfare. They expected armies to meet on open fields. They expected clear battle lines and formal surrenders. Humans did not follow those rules. They fight like animals, a council commander complained. They attack at night. They hide among civilians. They never face us fairly. Maybe that is why they keep winning, his officer replied quietly, Commander. Rook had made it his personal mission to find Yuna. He spent every resource hunting for the rebel base. He interrogated prisoners. He followed every lead. The small human woman had become his obsession. She must die, Rook told his troops. As long as she lives, the rebellion has hope. Kill her, and the rest will crumble. He was wrong about that. The rebellion was bigger than one person now. But Rook could not see past his hatred finally. After months of searching, Rook found the rebel station. He brought a strike force of his best warriors. They attacked in the middle of the night, cutting through the station's defenses. Alarms screamed through the corridors. Rebel soldiers rushed to fight back. But Rook's force was too strong, too fast. They pushed deeper into the station, killing everyone in their path. Yuna was in the command room when she heard the attack begin. Officers around her grabbed weapons and ran to defend. Guards tried to pull her toward an escape ship. No, Yuna said. I will not run. You must, a guard insisted. If they capture you, everything is lost. If I run now, I lose something more important than my life. I lose who I am. She walked toward the sounds of battle instead of away from them. Her steps were slow. Her body was tired, but her eyes were calm. Rook found her in a corridor near the docking bay. Bodies lay around her. The fighting had swept past this area, leaving destruction behind. Smoke filled the air. Emergency lights flickered red and white. She stood alone, facing him. She had no weapon. She had no armor. She was just a small woman in simple clothes, waiting for death. Rook stopped. His forearms hung at his sides, each one capable of crushing her in an instant. Finally, he said, the frail one herself. Do you know how long I have hunted you? I know, Yuna replied. You destroyed everything. The council. The order. Peace that lasted 10,000 years. It was not peace, Yuna said softly. It was control. It was murder hidden behind pretty words. Rook drew his blade. It was longer than Yuna was tall. The metal gleamed in the flickering light. Okay, any last words, human? Yuna looked up at him. She was not afraid. She had been afraid before. When she first arrived on the ship. When she almost froze to death. When she stood before the summit. But she had used up all her fear. There was none left. I was never your enemy, Rook, she said. I was your consequence. Rook raised his blade. And somewhere in the station, Taiho's rescue team finally broke through Rook's forces. They were coming. They were close. But Yuna did not know that. She only knew that she had done what she came to do. She had told the truth. She had lit the fire. Whatever happened next, the galaxy would never be the same. She closed her eyes and waited for the blade to fall. The blade did not fall. Yuna. Rook stood frozen above her, his weapon raised but motionless. His face showed something she had never seen there before. Confusion? Doubt? Why do you not beg? He demanded. Why do you not run? Would it change anything if I did? No, but it would be normal. It would make sense. Rook lowered his blade slightly. I have killed many enemies. They all begged at the end. They all tried to escape. You stand there like you have already won. Maybe I have, Yuna said. Explosions echoed somewhere in the station. The rescue team was getting closer. But in this small corridor, time seemed to have stopped. I have spent my whole life being told I was weak, Yuna continued. My body never worked the way it should. I could not run. I could not fight. I could not do what others found easy. For years, I believed that weakness defined me. She took a step toward Rook. He could have killed her in that moment. He did not move. So why is wah ba why ba why ba da ba. Strength of the body is not the only strength that matters. There is strength of the mind, strength of the heart, strength of the spirit. These are the strengths that change worlds. Pretty words, Rook growled, but words do not stop blades. No, but they can make the hand that holds the blade hesitate. Their eyes met. Yuna saw something broken in the mighty warrior. Behind all his rage, behind all his hate, there was pain, old pain. Pain that had been buried for so long, he had forgotten it was there. The council used you, she said gently. They used your people. They let your colony worlds die so they could control you. They made you their weapon and called it honor. Silence. You know it is true. You saw the evidence. You heard the recordings? Everything you fought for was built on lies. Rook's hands were shaking now. The blade trembled in his grip. What do you want from me? He asked. His voice was different, quieter, like a child lost in the dark. I want you to make a choice, Yuna said. You can kill me now. It will not save the council. It will not bring back what you lost. But you can do it if that is what you need. She paused, letting her words sink in. Or you can help me build something better. Something that does not need to destroy the weak to survive. Something that judges beings by their character, not their strength. I am a warrior. It is all I know how to be. Then be a warrior for something worth fighting for. The sounds of battle grew closer. Taiho and his team burst into the corridor from both ends. Weapons were raised. Voices shouted orders. In seconds, Rook would be surrounded by enemies. And then Rook did something that no one expected. He dropped his blade. The metal clattered against the floor. Then he lowered himself to one knee before Yuna. I have been a fool, he said. A blind fool who served masters that deserved to fall. Taiho rushed to Yuna's side, ready to carry her to safety. He stopped when he saw Rook kneeling. What is this? Taiho asked. A choice, Yuna said. A hard one. She reached out and touched Rook's shoulder. The gesture was strange. A tiny human hand on the scarred body of a giant warrior. Rise, Rook. There is still much work to do. 2 months later, the war ended. The Syndicate Council fell without a final battle. Their last stronghold surrendered when Rook himself led the rebel forces to their gates and demanded they answer for their crimes. The old rulers were put on trial. Their secrets were exposed to the entire galaxy. Some were imprisoned. Others were exiled to empty worlds where they could harm no one. A new galactic assembly rose from the ashes of the old order. Every species, large and small, strong and weak, had an equal voice. It was not perfect. It was messy and difficult and full of arguments. But it was fair. For the first time in 10,000 years, the galaxy had a government that did not depend on fear. Leaders from across the stars came to Yuna with offers. They wanted her to be the head of the new assembly. They wanted her to be a queen, an empress, a goddess. They wanted to give her everything. She refused them all. I did not do this for power, she told them. I did it because it was right. Power would only corrupt what we have built. Instead, she returned to her small quarters on the Eternal Dominion. The same storage room where she had started. It was clean now and warm, but still simple. Taiho visited her there on the day the new assembly held its first meeting. You could rule the galaxy, he said. Everyone would follow you. That is exactly why I should not rule. Una sat by her window, looking out at the stars. Leaders who want power are dangerous. The galaxy needs something else now. It needs hope. It needs the belief that anyone, no matter how small or weak, can make a difference. You gave them that, Taiho said. No, I showed them it was possible. They have to build it themselves. Taiho smiled. It was a rare expression on his scarred face. What will you do now? Rest. Right. Maybe teach. She pulled out her old journal with the red cover. It was full now, every page covered with her small handwriting. I have stories to tell. Stories about what one weak human can do when she refuses to give up. Years passed. The new galactic assembly grew stronger. Old enemies became friends. Species that once hated each other learned to work together. The sterilization programs were completely reversed. New children were born across the stars. First generation raised in peace, and everywhere. Beings told the story of the frail one. They told it to their children at bedtime. They taught it in schools. They carved it into monuments. The small human woman who had no strength and no weapons, who was mocked and abused and left to die, who rose anyway and changed everything. In a classroom on a distant world, a young alien child raised her hand. Teacher, was the frail one really so weak? The teacher, an old being with kind eyes, smiled at the question. Her body was weak. Yes. She could not run fast. She could not lift heavy things. She often got sick. Then how did she win? The teacher was quiet for a moment, thinking about how to explain something so important. She won because she understood something that the powerful forget. The body is just a vessel. What matters is what you put inside it. Courage, wisdom, love, determination. These things have no size. These things cannot be measured. And these things are stronger than any weapon. The child thought about this. Then she asked one more question. Could someone like me do what she did, even though I am small? The teacher knelt down to look the child in the eyes. Someone like you is exactly who she hoped would hear her story. Far across the galaxy, in a small room on an old ship, Una sat by her window and watched the stars. She was older now. Her hair had gone gray. Her body was weaker than ever. But her eyes still held that same fire. She thought about everything that had happened. The pain, the fear, the loneliness, the triumph. Was it worth it? She asked herself that question sometimes. Late at night, when sleep would not come, yes. Yes, it was worth it. She opened her journal to a fresh page and began to write. They ridiculed her weakness. They laughed at her body. They thought she was nothing. But she had something they did not understand. She had a soul that would not break. She had a will that would not bend. And in the end, when the strong had fallen and the mighty had crumbled, she was still standing. She put down her pen and closed the journal. Outside her window, the stars burned bright and eternal. And somewhere among them, children were learning that they too could change the universe. Not with strength, not with weapons, but with something far more powerful, with the unbreakable human spirit that lives in every heart, waiting to be awakened. Una smiled and closed her eyes. She had become their doom. But more importantly, she had become their hope. And hope, she knew, was the strongest force in the universe.